Prototype program. Today is my birthday. Yay! April 12th. That was when I was born, so really excited about that. I've been working today on the pod pack, trying to work out this design for the autonomous cradle and how it's going to work. I just want to kind of show what my office is looking like right now. You can see I got a laptop there where I'm working on the design. And then behind it, you can see I got like a mock-up going, like a prototype version. Working on a series of, pitches and trying to get my material going. Been doing a lot of reading on Guy Kawasaki and trying to understand, some perspectives for pitch deck versus executive summary and some other stuff. There's some things there that I think are really valuable that I've learned in researching a lot of those and what investors are looking for. There's also some that I slightly disagree with as well. It's important to realize that, my background is an architect and engineer, and one of the things I was trained to do was learn how to sell, products, how do I say this, like large products, expensive products. So, when you're selling a design to a building, it's probably one of the highest end types of, products you could sell, real estate / the development of the real estate at the same time. So it's a very expensive, hundreds of millions of dollars in some cases, and sometimes even way more than that. So by default, it's a combination of taking the advice of what VCs are talking about, but also adding in a new spin, something that has never really been brought to the table is using the images and using graphics to really sell and bring it home. Because typically when you're getting someone to invest $100 million into an architectural skyscraper, you are selling them on the image. In architecture we call it the money shot. And I don't really see too much of a difference with VC investors and other types of investors. I believe that if you can really showcase in an image what you're trying to do and back it up concisely with a set of questions and answers, then I think you can hit it home even stronger. A lot of them say conciseness is important, being concise, and I see it to an extent. When you're going back to that $100 million building, when you're trying to sell that building, you're not really summing it up in 30 seconds. No one invests $100 million just on a 30-second pitch. So knowing that ADHERE is a pretty big system, it's a network and it's a set of products that supports the network, it is very much like the $100 million skyscraper. And so with that, to me, I've determined that you have to pitch it a little bit differently because you're selling a product, but also a vision and also the story to support it, and also, technologically advancement. Like the next wave of travel and experience and the next wave of communications and all this other stuff. So being a part of that visionary type of perspective, you do have to sell a little bit differently. But they got some good points that I used, a lot of great ways to hit it home. When I first did my first executive summary, this is probably number like 300 or something nuts like that, when I did my first one, it was all text, and then I really started to bring my artistic and architecture and engineering background into the equation to write out these documents to be really high grade quality. Something that's, my goal is to make it so that when a VC or a potential investor opens up these files, that they're so well organized and so well articulated, and the point is so clear. Either through images or through supportive text, that it represents the caliber and the quality of the execution that will be done on this business model. Because that's really where it's at, is execution. It's really not about having a good idea. I mean, you need to have a great idea, and it needs to be significantly better than anything else that's happening. But at the end of the day, that really doesn't get you to where you need to go. It's about execution. It's about having a game plan and knowing that tomorrow you might have to scrap that plan and then redo it all over again. And just continuing to execute on those measures. If you can do execution, really any business model can be pretty successful. So we're working on this material. We've reached out to a ton of investors. We've been using a lot of different platforms to be able to contact these guys. Many of them, they don't have emails, or you go to their websites and there's no communications whatsoever. It's just pure images and maybe showcasing their portfolio. So it's been difficult, but I've been able to really use social media on the professional side to try and access some of these email addresses and make some good acquaintances and connections. So we're going to keep pushing that, because I think that's our best bet so far. It's been far more successful than going door to door, office to office, and just knocking on the door, because typically I haven't had luck in getting past the secretary, let alone getting a package through. There was a time for ADHERE Gear where we're pumping in a lot of money into printing the materials and getting them, hand delivering them. And it is kind of sad that we're not at that place anymore in society, because I think it's nice to receive like a gift like that. It costs money to print something, and if it's good quality, you can feel it, and you feel like it's worth your time for that 30 seconds to look through it. But now we're at the point where everything's digital. So at some point, we hope to bring paper back into our models somewhere in some areas. We toyed around with the idea of a health magazine or something. But right now we're really going to push the digital and getting our material out to these investors and potential partnerships. So yeah, just kind of wanted to sum up and give a recap on my birthday. What we're working on. I am going to take a break and go out to Barnes & Nobles and see if I can find a really nice sketchbook. Right now I'm going through sketchbooks like nothing. I fill them up pretty quickly with ideas and mapping out math and trying to figure out how different parts of this network would work. But yeah, so I'm going to go see if I can find a nice one, and hopefully it'll hold me over for a couple months before I'll need another one. Very important to have a sketchbook. Yeah, there's multiple forms of thinking, and I've found through experience that you have to use each form and use it to inform the next form of thinking. So you start out with your brainstorming and thinking through it, and kind of jot it down and kind of develop it through sketches and writing in your sketchbook or journal and trying to work it out. And then typically what happens is I jump into either a large format piece of paper at that point, or I start entering into the computer to start to visualize it more. And that could be a lot of different ways. It could be PowerPoint, it could be Word, it could be Photoshop, or it could be like a 3D development software. It really doesn't matter. But at that point it enters the computer, and then once I get it really tweaked many iterations on the computer, then I kind of go back to the sketchbook and look at it again now that I have a visual in my head, and I keep working it out. It eventually goes back and forth until I reach a point where I kind of get sick of it, like it's like an itch, and I feel compelled to start building it, because I have like enough information between the sketchbook and the computer to then actually build what I'm doing. So then I go and build it, playing off of the computer and the sketchbook, going back and forth, and using the three forms to kind of communicate to each other on what to do. Because a lot of times the sketchbook and the computer will both say one thing, but reality will say a different thing, right? So you're working with that material and you're like, ah, shit, it can't actually do what I thought it could do. So then you go back and just kind of keep working it out and just notate that, for that kind of angle, that's not going to work. So, and then the other thing is just communicating and sharing it with as many people as possible. The one thing I've learned from my emails is I've been rejected, 99.9% of the time with all my communications. So it's either the person just never responds, or they never got the email, or maybe it went into spam, or maybe I had the wrong email address. Or if they do respond, to just say, no thanks, good luck. And those are actually very few, very rare. And when I do get those, as much as they're a rejection, they're also a moment to celebrate, because that means you actually got through. Somebody actually took a look at it for a second. And occasionally you'll get advice, which is gold when they actually take the time to let you know what you did wrong. That's an amazing moment after the moment of being really pissed off that they critiqued your stuff. So you go through like a phase of being really upset, and you're like, well, what do they know? And da 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 da. And then after you get through all that, you sit down and think about it, and you're like, oh, well, maybe they're right. Maybe it's not clear. Maybe I do need to work it out. So sharing the idea with as many people as possible and talking through it. I would copy my email and paste it and tweak it and do it again and again and again. And at this point, it's probably like 2,500 or 3,000 different iterations of that email have gone out. And now it's getting just more refined each and every time. The email now is about 2 paragraphs, and it started out maybe like a page, you feel like you're trying to get everything in there for a person to understand what you're doing. And you start to figure out what are the most important kind of points to highlight to get them interested to move on to that attachment, So it really is an art form. It's communications at its best. It's really trying to push the envelope and figure out how do you talk to somebody that you can't actually physically talk to, and share with them your 10-minute vision in less than 15 seconds, enough for them to want to go through your pitch deck. The pitch deck took a lot of work. Oh my gosh. And I believe it's pretty close. I'm going to try and see if I can slim it down. A lot of people say your pitch deck should be around no more than 10 slides, and mine's at 28 slides. That's really tough. The advice is one of those where you have to take it with a grain of salt and kind of determine what's fitting for what you're doing. I believe that if you're doing a backpack, then I think 10 slides is very appropriate, But considering we're doing a pod pack and it's a really intense piece of technology, kind of like an iPhone, I don't know if you could sum that up in 10 slides. And so it's a network, and therefore those typically take a little bit more data and a little bit more explanation. So I'm kind of comfortable with where I'm at, but at the same time, like, I don't want to be naive. I want to take a stab at trying to slim it down some more. But using parallel examples, Uber and a bunch of other larger network type of ideas, they were all around 30 slides. So it's kind of like, okay, all those guys did pretty well, and their presentation was pretty long. So yeah, I think it's more about, I got advice from this one person who critiqued my stuff, and it was a pretty harsh critique, but it was valid. And he had said, it doesn't really matter how many slides you have. The key is making it that you flip through it like a picture book. So a picture book has 100, slides in it, but you get through it in a matter of, 10 seconds. So if you can make it so there's some serious, intense flow, then the belief is it doesn't really matter. And I think if I were to ever sit down with entrepreneurs and, students or anybody who's interested in developing and building their own company, I think that's the advice I would give. I hate when people say they give numbers, because if it's really good, people are going to listen, So that's my goal, is just make it really streamlined, very smooth transition, and reading the text, and it's in the right order, telling the story. And I think the 30 slides or 20 slides, wherever it lands at, I think it'll be okay. So yeah, we're gonna keep cranking it out, keep working. It's a lot of work. It's true. You have to love what you're doing, because it's tight. It's so difficult, and you have to constantly self-motivate. And there is nobody else that's going to pick you up. There's going to be days where people are going to say, oh, good job. Oh, this looks great. That's amazing. But it never lasts. It lasts maybe an hour, maybe half a day. But then you get like a week or 2 weeks where you haven't talked to anybody, nobody says anything, you showed your stuff, you haven't heard from anybody. And those are the moments where you're really tested. Those are the moments where you really have to find it deep inside of you to motivate, to keep going and believe in what you're doing, and believe in your ideas, believe in your skills, keep pushing yourself, keep learning, adapting, changing, getting better, refining yourself, and as much as possible. And if you can constantly find that little piece of confidence in yourself and keep building on that, I believe that at some point you knock down that door of success, and you achieve everything that you're looking to do and more. So we'll check out. It's my birthday. I'm going to go work a little bit more and then take a break and probably hit it again later tonight. So with that, peace and love. You're out.